my will and put their agenda aside to do my agenda. They will be strong in me and do many sacrifices to accomplish my will. They will wait before me to hear from me and long to obey my every command. You will know them as they continue to do my will above their own will. Their actions will speak for themselves.
Good luck.
Right?
See the Lord just coming down and just fire and just touching people, you know, and bringing all that yucky stuff out of their lives and just setting them free. Yeah. Such a good
I want to share something. This month is the 20th anniversary of Littleton, Colorado, Columbine. And I was just reading the sermon by one of the pastors that was on scene the morning of the shooting, as it was still active and whatnot. And his message that Sunday morning was Satan had a plan, and that Satan was there. And he even mentioned in his deal, he says how he could smell the pit of hell there. But that God's plan is bigger, and God is still in control. And God's timing is perfect because three parents or three people committed suicide this week on the year anniversary of the shooting in another school. And we lead by example. And I think that after the first suicide, 2 others took their lives because of someone leading by example. They couldn't take the grief anymore. So people are watching what we're doing, and it's so, we don't know how people are grieving under any circumstance, any particular circumstance and whatnot. But we have to keep on showing Christ as our lamp that keeps us going through times of trouble and of times of joy, you know, relishing that God is doing all this. This ain't us doing this. This is our love for Jesus and Jesus' love for us. So, one last thing, it was like, I saw a man grieving because of the loss of someone that he found out that he loved, more so than afterwards than during their relationship, So, God's plans outdo Satan's plans. To always just the good, you know?
Yeah, that's right,
Don't dwell on Satan's stuff.
right.
And then a praise report, I got my A1C, which was in December, 10.8 or 11.8, one of the two. 3 weeks after we started a lifestyle change in our eating, it was 8.8. And now, less than 90 days into this new lifestyle, at 6.8, and I've quit doing insulin, and I'm trusting God, and I'm just gonna quit doing the diabetes lifestyle at all. I'm gonna check, see how, this is for me. I'm not suggesting this for anybody else. But I'm proclaiming that I don't have diabetes.
Amen.
Never believed in it when it was latched on to me 20 years ago. But I am living testimony that I'm God's body, not a scientific medical resource lab.
Amen.
Amen. And that's because my wife loves me and she changed our lifestyle. So we're in it together.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you, Annie.
That's good. Amen. And do you have something you want to share this morning, or? I mean, you don't have to, I just was wondering what you do while you're here. You like coming here, I know you do. Yeah, I know you do here. Pray about it for a second. Okay. So Matt's not here today. He called me and he said, Virginia, you're gonna have to preach. I said, okay. I told him, I said, I had 3 messages, I already did the 2, and so this is the last one I got, not that it will be the last one, but this is the other one. So when I was coming back the last time from Arizona, the Lord was saying, be responsible, and I go, okay. You know, so I started looking into what that means to be responsible, and this is what he gave me. So, being responsible has character traits of being honest, having compassion and respect for others, fairness, accountability, and courage to do those things that God has called us to do. Amen? We take full responsibility for everything we do, for our actions, right? When I was younger, my mom, you know, she would tell me something, I said, Mom, I can make my own decisions. You know, I can make my own decisions. Well, later on in life, when I turned 30, okay, I called her and I said, Mom, what do you think about this? She goes, you can make your own decisions. I'm like, oh yeah. But anyway, it was so cool because Friday I went to the eye doctor, and we were talking about, you know, I told her I just turned 60. She said, well, you don't look 60. She says, she said, I remember when I turned 30, I thought I was really old. And she said, now I'm beyond that. She says, but when I turned 30, I remember having to be responsible. You know, when I turned 30, she said, I realized that now I'm an adult and I gotta be responsible for things. And I remember that same thing when I turned 30, because that's when I called my mom and said, you know, asked her about something, and she said, well, you can make your own decisions. Anyway, so we're responsible for ourselves, right? So if you're responsible for something, you can't give it away. It's yours to do, right? So we try to brush it off on somebody else, but bottom line, guys, you might as well just get her done, because it's for you to do. You don't blame others for your future, it's your responsibility. Responsibility also is the ability to meet obligations, the act of being accountable when faced with a difficult decision. There's 3 options. You can give up, You can back up, or you can stand up. Okay? So I'm gonna give you a few definitions of responsible, and then we're gonna go into 4 different types of people. My glasses are dirty. The definition is being the person that causes something to happen. When you're responsible for something, you can cause that thing to happen because you're responsible for it. God has put it on you to do. And when you're responsible for that thing, you can change history like we're saying today. You know, I have destiny. I can change history by being responsible. And it's something that's caused, and then it also means we're careful to make a sound judgment about something. Responsible citizens, for example, has a knowledge of his role in the community or the state or the world. They make the world a better place to live. You know, and I know a lot of us have been called into this community, and we're called to make it a better place to live. We're bringing God's kingdom here on earth. Amen?
Yeah.
Personal responsibility, we choose, instigate, or otherwise cause our own actions. Therefore, we are held accountable. Harry Truman said, the buck stops here, right? So it's your responsibility to do what God's called you to do. The importance of being responsible is because it's a sign of good character. Being a good citizen also means being honest, respecting property of others, not breaking the law, and being informed of what's happening in our world. Responsible is an adjective. It is having good judgment and the ability to act correctly and make good decisions on your own, and it's also for caring for others. It's not about you. You're being responsible and you're caring for other people. We're also responsible for ourselves and our bodies and stuff, but also, you know, joy. Jesus, others, and yourself. You know, when you put Jesus first, when you think of others, and then yourself, that's when we have joy. So, so there's 4 types of people. There's the dropouts, there's the cop-outs, there's the holdouts, and then there's the all-outs. So we're gonna look at those people. So let's go to the first one, the dropouts. Let's go to Matthew 26. So Jesus is about to go into to be hung on the cross. So Father, I just ask that your word would penetrate our hearts and that we would become doers of the word, not just hearers only. In Jesus' name. Okay.
What verse?
36. Says, and Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and said to the disciples, sit here while I go and pray over there. And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Then he said to them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. And he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, what? What are you doing? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Again, a second time, he went away and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me, unless I drink it, your will be done. And he came and found them again sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So he left them, and went away again and prayed the 3rd time, and saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of the sinners. Rise, let us go, be going, see, my betrayer is at hand. So here we have the dropouts. Right? Jesus asked them to pray, and here they're sleeping. You know? They just weren't doing what God asked them to do. Jonah. Let's go back over to Jonah. All right, Jonah over there. I have to say them, otherwise I.
Page 789.
Right, Jonah and Micah, damn.
In mine.
We'll start in verse 1. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and cry out against it, and their wickedness has come up upon them. But Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and he went down to Joppa, and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare, and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So here we have another dropout. He's like, no way, I ain't doing it. I'm out of here. Of course, we know what happened, you know. The sea comes and a big storm comes and they're like, what the heck is going on? And he says, it's because of me, you know. So they throw him overboard and then he gets swallowed by a whale. They throw him back on the beach, but he finally goes back and does what God's telling him to do. Nehemiah. All the people that were supposed to, nobody wanted, how long was it? Do you guys know how long it was, Ed? Maybe 26 years? Or was it longer that they didn't rebuild the wall? So, you know, everybody was just kind of dropping out. They didn't want to do the work, right? So those are the dropouts, not being responsible. Let's go to the cop-outs. We don't want to be dropouts, guys. Genesis 3.
Even when you drop out, you usually wind up doing it anyway.
Yeah, well, a lot of us guys that started to drop out, they ended up going back and doing it. Okay, 9, starting verse 9. Then the Lord called to Adam and Eve and said, where are you? And he said, I kind of started in the middle. Sometimes I start in the middle of something. So let's start in just 3:1. Now the serpent was more cunning than the beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said to you, you shall not eat of the tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, you will surely not die, for God knows that in that day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desiring to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave it to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. And they heard the sound of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid himself from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord called to Adam and said to him, where are you? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. And he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you that you should not eat? Then the man said, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave it to me on the tree, and I ate. And the Lord said to the woman, was it this that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. So here we have, right? Cop outs. No, it was him. No, it was her. we copped out on something.
That was a serpent.
So the cop-outs again are people who make excuses for why they aren't responsible. Let's go to Matthew 26, another cop-out here. We'll start in 69. Now Peter was set outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl, now this was, they came and gotten Jesus. Now Peter sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him, saying, "You also were with this Jesus of Galilee." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I don't know what you're saying." When he had gone out to the gateway, another girl saw him and said to those who were there, "This fellow also was with Jesus of Nazareth." But again he denied with an oath, "I do not know that man." And a little later those who stood by came and said to Peter, "Surely you also are one of them, for your speech betrays you." Then he began to curse and swear, saying, "I do not know the man." Immediately a rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the word of Jesus, who had said to him, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." So he went out and wept bitterly. So here again, we have a cop-out. Peter was copping out that he even knew Jesus. So again, cop-outs are people who make excuses for why they aren't responsible. Now we're going to go to the holdouts. These are people who waver too long to take responsibility. Let's go to Numbers 13. Numbers 13. Look at Numbers. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Let's start in 17. Let's start in 13:1 and then we'll skip over. "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a leader among them. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the company or the command of the Lord, all the men who were heads of the children of Israel." So let's go on over to 17. "Then Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said to them, Go up this way and to the south and up to the mountains, and see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in there are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, or whether there are forests there are not. Be of good courage, and bring some of the fruit of the land." Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin, as far as Rehob, near the entrance of Hamath. And they went up through the south and came to Haran, blah, 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 on down. Let's go to 23. Sorry. Then they came to the valley of Ishkal, and there they cut down the branch of 1 clutches of grapes. They carried it between the 2 of them on a pole. So these things were huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
They also brought some of the pomegranates and figs. The place was called the Valley of Ishkal because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down from there. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Then they told them and said, "We went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea, along the banks of the Jordan. And Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it." But the men who gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." So here they are, they're holding out, okay? They decided that they're just not gonna do it, right? I was thinking about that. If I saw all that, you know, what would I do? You know, would I go, well, yeah, the guys are really big and, you know, would I be holding out on God and not going into what he's saying? You know, how many times do we hold out on, because we just don't take God at his word? Remember when they were on the sea and they were fishing and they were throwing out their nets, you know, and they didn't catch anything all night long. And then Jesus said, "Throw the nets the other side." So he throws them the other side, and what he said was, "Lord, we've been fishing all night long, but at your word." You know, and then they trusted God and they threw it out the other side and they caught so many fish that the boat was almost sinking, right? You know, and that's where we need to come at in our lives, where we take God at his word. Instead of holding out, but just pressing in and saying, "But God, at your word." Yes. You know, what you were saying today, Wes, you know. God has something for us. So we don't want to be a dropout. We don't want to be a cop-out. We don't want to hold out. You know, look at what happened with David and Bathsheba. You know, he looked upon her. They did things they weren't supposed to do. You know, and then instead of repenting, you know, he just held out and he had her husband killed. You know, then his child died, and then it went all bad. So when we hold out on God, things can go all bad. We need to say,
Amen.
"Yes, Lord."
Yeah.
You know, we need to say, "Yes, Lord." You know, okay, so now we got the all outs. I like this part. These are the people who own the responsibility and they took action. So let's go to Daniel 3. I just really feel God is going to start moving in a mighty way in the city again. He has, but I think it's going to be more intense. And the more that we say, "Yes, Lord," to everything. Look out. Amen?
Amen.
You guys agree with that? Okay. Let's go down to Daniel 3:8. Therefore at the time certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, and symphony with all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the gold image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now if you are ready at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, and symphony with all kinds of music, and you fall down and worship the image which I have made, good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you into my hands?" Now at that time, those guys could have been dropouts, They could have copped out, or they could have held out, but they didn't. They went all out. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up. And Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them to the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, the trousers, the turbans, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king command was urgent, the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So the guys that threw them in there, man, they went up in flaming ashes. And then these men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to the counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said to the king, True, O king. Look, he said, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. So cool. Hey, God. Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire, and the satraps, and ministers, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together. And they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not on them. And Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angels and delivered his servants who trusted in him. And they have frustrated the king's word and yielded their bodies, that they should not serve nor worship any other god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut into pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this. Isn't that awesome? So when we go all out in our walk with the Lord, God is glorified. If we will just take him at his word, no matter what the circumstances is, you know, we're going to see mighty things happen. Yes, Lord. So let's look at the ones who pursued the all-outs. Let's go to Hebrews 11. So faith is the substance of things, 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. By faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. So here's some of the heroes of faith. By faith Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and through it he being dead still speaks. By faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. For before he was taken he had this testimony that he pleased God. But without faith it's impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. By faith Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is according to faith. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. But he was just being responsible, right? By faith he dwelt in the land of the promise as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, their heirs with them, in the same promise. For he waited for the city which was foundations, whose builder and maker is God. By faith, Sarah herself also received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. So let's go over to 17, down to 17. By faith Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he had received the promise, offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. By faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning these things to come. By faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each one of his sons of Joseph, and worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. By faith Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel, and gave instruction concerning the bones. By faith Moses, when he was born, was hidden 3 months by his parents, because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's command. By faith Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the sons of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the approach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, as he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. By faith they passed through the Red Sea as on dry land, whereas Egyptians, attempting to do so, were drowned. So here's some more. These are the all-outs. By faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they were encircled for 7 days. By faith the harlot Rahab did not perish with those who did not believe, when she was received the spies with peace. And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to fight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trial of mockings and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonments. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were tempted, they were slain with the sword. They wandered around in sheepskin and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in the deserts and mountains and dens and caves on the earth. All of these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, or were responsible, did not receive the promise, God having provided something better for us, that we should not be made perfect apart from us. So therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by such great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So those are the all-outs, you guys. And I believe that we're going to have our name written down of how we went all out and followed Christ the whole way.
Yes.
We're not going to be a dropout. We're not going to be the cop-out. We're not going to be the, who's the other one?
Hold out.
The holdout. We're not going to hold out and say, well, I don't know, God, you know. But we're going to go all out.
That's right.
Amen?
Amen.
Caleb and Joshua, they were all out, and they went for it.
Yeah.
You know, the people, I mean, they were with the people again for years, and the people were complaining and griping about everything, but Joshua and Caleb, they held strong till the end, and they said, no, we're gonna do this. And they did, they received it. So we need to see the glass half full, not half empty,
Yeah.
right? No matter what comes up our way. Being human means accepting this responsible to take our thoughts captive and reflect the image of a living God into creation. We will be held accountable for the impact of our choices. So there's a few quotes I want to share with you real quick, and then I'm done. The moment you take responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you can change everything in your life. Amen? It's only when you take responsibility for your life that you discover how powerful you truly are.
Amen.
So when we take God at His word, you know, it's Christ in us. It's not us doing this, it's Him. But man, we can change things. You know, when you come into a situation and it's totally out of chaos, and if you know who you are and take responsibility for who you are in Christ, you can change the atmosphere in that situation. Right?
That's right.
Okay, speaking the word of God. The power behind taking responsibility for your actions lies in putting an end to negative thought patterns. You no longer dwell on what went wrong or focus on whom you are going to blame. You don't waste time building roadblocks to your success. Instead, you are set free and can now focus on succeeding.
Yes.
By Lori Myers. Les Brown said, accept responsibility for your life. Know that it is you who will get you to where you want to go, no one else. You know that we can, when, you guys ever read any of Carolyn Lee's books? Who Switched Off Your Brain? This woman is amazing. She's a Christian scientist, and she has studied the brain and how your brain is wired. And so, like, when you have a negative thought, there's actually like little trees inside your brain. And when you speak a negative thought, those trees just get all weird,
Yeah.
you know? But you can retrain your mind and to think positive thoughts, and those trees clear up, and then they're able to function like they're supposed to. And your brain tells your body what to do. It's just amazing. I mean, it's just, I love watching her stuff. And I was so blessed because when I went to Lake Havasu, we went to this one church, and I walked in, and they had all their books there. And I was like, oh, Carolyn Lee, and I go, wow, I love her stuff. And they go, well, she's here. And I go, what? You know, but her stuff is phenomenal. But she says, we can regrow our brain, God's love way rewired. So when we think His thoughts and do what He says to do, you know, we can change our world. And we have to take responsibility for the things that God has told us to do, and honor Him in that,
Yeah.
and be responsible, taking that as word, and watch the world change. So that's what I have to do.
Amen.
I'll be responsible. So Father, we thank you that you called us, Lord, to be all outs. Lord, we're not going to drop out, cop out, or what's the other one? Hold out, Lord, but we're going to be all out for you, for the things you've called us to do. And we're excited, Lord, for that. So Lord, we just love you. We thank you again for what you did here today. We give you all the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Well, that holdout isn't even in your vocabulary.
Hold out is not enough.
Can't even remember it.
That's right.
You know,
Father, we just give unto you cheerfully and joyfully, Lord. We thank you, Lord, again, how you make provision for everything in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Next, I believe Saturday, again, is the Helping Hands, Rose's Helping Hands down in Fallon. Is a faith-based sober living facility. they're gonna be working there to finish it up for the opening on the next week. So if you guys wanna go down there. Also, Saturday, April 13th, the lady from the Baptist church that does the shoebox, Christmas shoeboxes, they're gonna do a fundraiser for those. So if you guys wanna go down there and bowl, there's a flyer
What's
on
the
that.
thing in Fallon that you said, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it all.
Rose's Helping Hands,
And what?
it's a faith-based sober living facility.
Oh,
So when they get out of, New Frontiers, and they're gonna come into their, the transition to, have jobs and get broken up instead of just getting blasted.
So I think they're gonna need help cleaning on the inside, if I remember
Yes.
right. So cleaning and maybe painting, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're also gonna be siding the outside of the building. So if you got a hand in doing siding or got a nail gun for siding, any tooling stuff, that would help. So,
Next Saturday, that beautiful wife of mine wants to, kind of like a sell for these. She, is putting on that, this is the 4th year she's done it, that Leslie's Hope Scholarship at Fernley High School, and only there, $500. So she wants, it, in between the meetings or the services, have this available outside.
Awesome.
And these are all handmade, her and a bunch of the girls from church put them together, and a lot of thought and talent went into these. Okay?
And also, I wanted you guys to know, I don't know if you all heard, but Sherry Lou went home to be with the Lord yesterday. Yeah.
Hallelujah.
You know, and I just want to share with you, I went up and saw her the day after she went in there, and they still had the tubes down her and everything. And she did not want that. She just wanted to, she's been wanting to go home to be with the Lord for a while now and be with Jim. And, anyway, I was talking to her, and of course, she can't talk back and stuff, but, I was carrying on a conversation there. So anyway, the next, when they took him out, she called me, and she said, Regina, I want you to know, I heard everything you said, and I was having a good conversation with you. I said, that's good. So, but she said, I want to share with you what happened. She said, the Lord said he's gonna take me home. And I said, all right. She said, but is it gonna be hard for me the next time? And he said, no, it's not. It's gonna be easy. And so when she passed on yesterday, she just went to sleep and went home easy. So, I just praise God that He honored that, because her heart has been for probably this last year, she just wanted to go home. She was done. She just wanted to go home. And so I praise the Lord that she's with the Lord, and I'm gonna miss her. Of course, we all will miss her, but we'll see her again, and we have that hope that we have, that we're gonna be with everybody again. So I look to that, and, yeah, so, praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
So, pray for Jim.
The son.
Yeah. Yeah, his son, their son, Jim. So just pray for him.
And the granddaughter.
And Shelby, and Darlene, of course, and family. So, we'll be getting together, and we'll let y'all know when we have services. Be blessed today. Like Matt says, have a groovy day. He's on his way back from Arizona, and, it'll be good to see him again. So be blessed.
What about tonight?